Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. General Gonzales, Mike, Rupert. For this afternoon, I was supposed to talk on the mechanics of the forthcoming Metro Manila Shake Drill, the third Metro Manila Shake Drill. And before I proceed, let me give you a rundown first on the consideration for this particular drill. Again, we're looking at the threat to Metro Manila of the West Valley Fault. And there are two models that PBOC had already produced, that if it moves with a magnitude 6.5, you would see in the screen that Metro Manila, the entire Metro Manila would be affected. On the other hand, if it realizes the worst case scenario and generate a magnitude 7.2 earthquake, it's not only Metro Manila that's going to be affected. There are certain implications of this particular scenario, considering that Metro Manila contributes 40% to the Philippines economy. Regions 3 and 4 are also major contributors to the Philippine economy. And therefore, we are really pushing hard to raise people's awareness insofar as preparing for the earthquake itself and also reducing the vulnerability of Metro Manila. Presented before you is the chart that would depict the estimated damages as a result of the movement of the West Valley Fault under a worst-case scenario scheme. Okay. Contrary to popular notion that it's the it's the tall buildings, no, that would be affected severely, this particular chart would give you an idea that it's really mostly the residential structures that could be affected. Around 40% would be damaged. And if it happens during nighttime, you could just imagine that people would be inside their houses at nighttime. And what do we do with the collapsing 170,000 structures? This chart that was produced by the previous study, the JICA supported study, way back in 2002 up to 2004, already gives us an idea where the areas that would be severely affected. Okay, warm colors would depict areas that have higher damages, and cooler colors would indicate lower damages. Not necessarily nil. Okay. If people are caught preparing their meals at home, no, during nighttime, and they suddenly leave their cooking facilities, chances are there would be under, again, a worst-case scenario, an outbreak of fires. Okay. We estimate that there would be about 500 simultaneous fires that could break out. And if there's a prevailing wind, just like what happened in Kobe, because the Kobe earthquake and the North Luzon earthquake happened to be the models that the study took into consideration. Okay. There would be a wide, spread out of this fire and could add on fatalities to the figure that was presented earlier. Because of the debris that have cluttered all over the street, plus the break of certain lifelines and fires, chances are Metro Manila, the portions of Metro Manila would be, we would have difficulty of accessing one zone to another. That's why we're talking about quadrants, no? That's why you've been hearing the concept of quadrants in the contingency plans that we have for Metro Manila. Lifelines would be impacted, definitely. Difficulty of communication, power, water, as well as movement because of the damage of roads and bridges. We have already existing contingency plans. The Metro Yacal version 1, which was crafted and presented to NDRRMC way back in 2010. And the more recent one, which is the Metro Yakal Plus, which already talks about utilization of resources outside of Metro Manila. It had already aggregated the resulting damages and potential deaths or injuries in each of these quadrants. By the way, in this particular slide, the third column, which indicates the number of deaths, this would only happen, I mean, if the earthquake occurs during nighttime. Otherwise, we would have a different figure for the injured and for the dead. But what we're really looking at and preparing for is that how do we contend with this kind of worst-case scenario for planning purposes. Both strategists had already, outlined several strategies ranging from preparedness activity to certain strategies like pre-positioning equipment and resources, then had already identified the particular service that would be given priority, like search and rescue, debris clearing, security, and establishment of command and control, as well as the field services, field medical emergency services. We have also put in place a provision in the plan whereby we have already engaged involvement of the private sector. Now, these are the pre-designated staging areas for the resources. Mike mentioned about the use of the Veterans Memorial Medical Center golf course as one of the major evacuation centers. It's big enough to handle evacuation coming from the communities nearby, as well as stage the resources thereof. The other areas would be assuming the ground in Intramuros does not liquefy. On the west, it would be the Intramuros golf course. And for the eastern part, which would cater to the needs of Marikina and Pasig, it would be the Santolan Depot for now. There would be other vacant spaces that we have seen, but I think there will be future coordinations insofar as if the earthquake happens anytime, then government can just conscript all of those resources to use them. Then we have the Villamor Air Base golf course on the southern portion. We have already put in a lot of considerations for handling communications that would link the different quadrants. We're slowly building up resources, ranging from life detectors, water filtration units, temporary shelters, communications bands, and making sure that all the resources of the agency would be available. Maybe you've seen these containers underneath. They contain several boxes of tools that the communities can access. Not necessarily, it's not necessarily MMDA going to use them, but even the communities can access them, especially those who have undergone the training that MMDA had been offering for several years. Other strategies would be, defining or identifying the emergency operations alternate sites. For the national, it would be Clark or Subic. For the Metro Manila, General Gonzalez mentioned a while ago that for this year, we would like to test the availability and the facilities at PNP, NCRPO headquarters in Bicutan. There are also provisions for other regions coming into Metro Manila, like for each of those quadrants, like regions 1, 2, CAR, regions 7, alternate. Okay. This would just depict the graphic concept, graphically depict the concept about the assistance. In so far as other national resources, like the Armed Forces of the Philippines, they have already factored in their plan which particular quadrant they will support. Okay. Just to refresh us a bit as to how the shake drill would happen. We firmly believe that the way to reduce our vulnerability would really be to prepare people, raise their level of awareness. Okay. Because it's only through this activity that people will be prompted to take necessary action to reduce the vulnerabilities that they have right now. Sabi nga ni Dr. Solidum, hindi naman nakakamatay ang lindol. Ang nakakamatay yung mga gusali na hindi tama ang pagkakagawa, substandard, and even old ones or dilapidated already. But we have lots of those. We're just trying to capitalize on the success of the first two shake drills, metro-wide simultaneous shake drill or earthquake drill that we have conducted in order for us to be able to institutionalize this activity. Okay. So for this year's drill, as was already mentioned in the speech of the chairman read by General Gonzalez, it would be a 4-day event to provide a lot of, a window of opportunity for all of us to test. Dati-rati ho kasi kapag nag-drill tayo, hindi makasabay ang mga communities kasi may pasok. So this year, we would like to give them an opportunity to exercise their drills at the community level. At the same time, for this year's activity, we should be able to not only raise awareness, but be more spontaneous in this particular exercise. May nagsuggest nga ho, dapat kung may plano na tayo, may mga ginagawa tayo, may mga exercises, dapat hindi na ina-announce kung kailan, basta sasabihin na lang. Siguro darating tayo doon next year, whereby we will just announce the possible dates, no specific day, no specific time, then suddenly we will declare that there's a drill that's ongoing. Okay? So we should be able to, again, test individual organizations and community response during. And also, perhaps this year we should be able to exercise, for the private sector, they should be able to exercise their business continuity and early recovery plan. Okay? The general scenario would still be almost similar to what we had before. The drill starts at 4 a.m. The earthquake lasts for 45 seconds. So we see a green picture of what's happening around. Okay. Then we'll have that usual declaration or confirmation from Yusek Solidum that indeed it was the West Valley Fault that had moved. You would see the general scenario would be somewhat what's happening already whenever we have strong earthquakes. Okay. Then apart from this general scenario, there would be, again, some scripted or pre-planned demonstration scenarios. Okay. But for this year, we have announced to everybody that in as much as we're testing the command, control, and how they would react to the situation, most of the injects or most of the scenarios would be coming from the blind side, meaning to say they don't know what's the situation. They would just receive report, and from those reports, they should be able to exercise the test, okay, and test their respective plans or their reaction to it. We'd like to test the whole spectrum of response from the national and maybe even include, international. That's the reason why it's long. Because realistically, before, everything would come from zero meaning to say that if you get hit by the earthquake or as soon as the drill starts at 4 o'clock, you'll start from where you're coming from. So walang prepositioning na may scripted na daya, kundi talagang kung saan ka inabot, you will endeavor to go to. And this will hold true especially for government responders. Okay. So the timeline would particularly be, spontaneous, continuing. For the response side, it will end July 16. July 16, the significance of which is the commemoration of the July 16, 1990 earthquake. Perhaps through this particular schedule or synchronization, we would be able to again raise people's consciousness towards earthquake safety. The drill, the emergency response drill will end on the 16th, lunchtime, whereas the business continuity or the test of the private sector of the respective BCP and early recovery, they would have an opportunity to do a live test of their business continuity Monday morning. Okay, okay. Not everything will be physical. Some would be doing their tabletop exercises at least. Okay. So again, the event will be triggered by audible signals. We expect everyone, again, to perform the usual self-protection action, building evacuation. If in certain establishments they have already a response plan, then they can test it. Okay. The plans, the existing plans, would be the basis for action, and therefore we get to test them as well, including the agency or even LGU plans. Also the Petroleum Institute of the Philippines. Okay. Now the reason again why it's long is because we would like the other regions and the armed forces to really come from where they are and come to Metro Manila. So let's see whether they will reach Metro Manila in a matter of 2 days. Okay. We have to put special emphasis on how the managers or the incident commanders would be managing the event, okay, from their perspective. And therefore, we'd like really to give a premium on testing the command and control, as well as communication for this. We have heard from the news last night that as late as 12 midnight, they still have not received reports coming from other affected areas in the Visayas because of the earthquake. It's only through this morning that we began to see grim images of the other damages that transpired. Okay. We encourage that participants would do their evaluation, be honest with themselves, so that they can address the gaps. What we would really like to generate out of the exercise is really, the involvement of the different layers, okay, of our society, starting from individual, family, not only government, but most especially community. We hope that we could do this here in the Philippines. Okay. So that was the earthquake that transpired in Japan in 2011. There was a primary road that's a vital lifeline for those in those regions. Okay. They did it in 6 days. They fixed it as if nothing happened within 6 days. Okay. Masyado naman tayo negative eh. Dapat kaya rin natin yan. And DPWH is already looking into how this could be achieved here. Okay. Yun, matagal na nilang alam na masisira o posibleng masira. So, matagal na rin nilang ikinontrata doon sa gagawa na hindi taga doon sa lugar. Okay? So pagdating nung hindi apektado yung gumawa, kaya matuloy nilang naisagawa yan. Kapag yung inasahan natin yung apektado, chances are... So maraming salamat ho sa pagbigay ng daan dito sa amin.